20 foods from the old book, and every one of them a medicine that modern science is only now catching up to. And here is the strange part. The healthiest diet the world has ever measured was written down thousands of years before the first laboratory ever opened its doors. You have been told these were poor people eating poor food, scraping by on crusts and scraps. You have been told wrong. Somewhere in this countdown is a man history says ate insects in the wilderness, who may in truth have lived on one of the most healing foods on earth, and I will save that one for last. My name is Malcolm Ashby, and for 50 years now I have been growing things and gathering things out in the hedgerows and the wild corners where nobody thinks to look. And these ancient foods are close kin to the wild plants I gather still, the same roots, the same seeds, the same quiet power that was old when the world was young. Let me say one thing, and then I will not bring it up again. Every plant, I know its look-alike and what it is worth in dollars, I have put into one book. On page 31, there is a weed that grows in most backyards that people spray on sight and that replaces the $5 tea they have been buying for years. It is at thebackyardgoldmine.com, and the link is under this video. If you want it, it is there. That is all. Right then, let us get into it. Number 1. Olive oil. It is named more than 140 times in the old pages, poured over the heads of kings to crown them and pressed into open wounds to heal them. And when the Good Samaritan knelt by that beaten man on the road, it was oil and wine he poured on the hurt. And here is what the ancients could not have known in words but knew in their bones. Olive oil carries a compound called oleocanthal, and it works in the body much the way ibuprofen does, quietly calming the fires of inflammation. The Mediterranean way of eating, built upon this golden oil, lowers heart disease more surely than any pill we have ever invented. A spoonful taken plain in the morning was an old country cure for a troubled stomach. Buy it cold-pressed and extra virgin, mind, or you are buying something less. Number 2. Raw honey. The old song speaks of honey and milk beneath the tongue, and honey runs through those pages like liquid gold, but this is no mere sweetness for the tea. Raw honey is a genuine antimicrobial. It draws the very water out of a wound, it makes a little hydrogen peroxide, and it kills bacteria that even our strongest modern drugs have given up the fight against. Manuka honey sits in hospital wound dressings to this very day, spread on burns and ulcers that will not close. It must be raw, mind you, not the cooked and filtered stuff that sits in the plastic bottle, and they found honey sealed in the Egyptian tombs, thousands of years old, and still perfectly good to eat. Nothing else we know of on this earth does that. Number 3. Figs. When good King Hezekiah lay dying of a terrible boil, the prophet Isaiah called for a poultice of figs to be laid upon it, and the man recovered and lived out his years. Now that was not a stroke of luck. Figs hold an enzyme called physin that breaks down dead and rotting flesh, the very thing you would want drawn out of such a wound, and eaten whole, they are rich in fiber, in magnesium, in potassium, the quiet minerals that keep the heart beating steady and the gut moving as it should. A few dried figs soaked overnight were the old and gentle answer to a body that had grown bound up and sluggish. The old book set figs upon a boil, and the old book was right. Number 4. Dates. The most mentioned fruit tree in all those pages, and for good reason, for the date is survival itself, dense with the very energy that carried travelers across the burning desert with nothing else in their packs. It gives you quick sugars, yes, but wrapped up in fiber and minerals so the body takes them slow and gentle, with no cruel crash to follow. And here is a lovely thing the science has lately found. Women who eat a few dates in the last weeks of carrying a child tend to have an easier and a shorter labor of it, a food from the driest and hardest of lands, easing the hardest and most tender work a body will ever do. Number 5. Pomegranates. 200 of them were carved in stone upon the pillars of Solomon's temple. That is how highly the ancients prized this jeweled fruit. And within it sit compounds called punicalagins, which the good bacteria of your gut turn into something named urolithin, a quiet and patient fighter against the inflammation buried deep in the body. The juice has been shown, cup by cup, to bring down high blood pressure. The ancients saw a fruit red as rubies and set it in their holiest place as a sign of life and plenty, and it turns out to be true medicine for the very heart that beats inside your chest. They chose better than they knew. Number 6. Lentils. Poor Esau came in from the field so faint and famished that he sold his own birthright for a single bowl of red lentil stew, and when you know how they fill a hungry man, you can almost forgive him. One cooked cup carries around 18 grams of good protein, along with iron and folate, to build rich blood. They release their energy slow and low, with no sharp spike and no weary crash to follow after. And when the scholars went looking round the world at the peoples who live the very longest, it was the humble eaters of beans and lentils who reached the great old ages, past 90 and beyond. Plain food on the plate and long life in the bones. Number 7. Barley. When 5,000 hungry folk were fed upon a green hillside, it was barley loaves in that boy's little basket, for barley was ever the bread of the ordinary working man, and barley holds more of a fibre called beta-glucan than any other grain that grows. That fibre takes a firm hold of the cholesterol in you and carries it clean out of the body, and it steadies your blood sugar so it rises gentle as a slow tide instead of a sharp and jarring wave. A thin barley water, simmered soft and strained, was for centuries the drink given to the sick and the fevered to bring them back to strength. The bread they thought so humble is one of the finest things you could put in your body. Number 8. Ancient wheat. Now hear me close on this one, for it truly matters. The wheat of those old pages was not the wheat that fills the shelves today. It was einkorn and emmer, the very first grains that man ever tamed from the wild grass. Einkorn carries 14 chromosomes, where our modern dwarf wheat has been bred up to 42, and its gluten is a softer and gentler thing that many a troubled gut can handle without complaint. The grain that God gave was never the enemy of your health. What makes so many people poorly today is not the wheat of the old fields at all, but the pale and hollow thing we have gone and turned it into in our mills and factories. Number 9. Grapes. I am the vine, he said, and the vine and its fruit run all through those pages from the first book clean to the last. In the skins and the little seeds of the grape sit resveratrol and quercetin, the very compounds the laboratories now chase after for the heart and for long life itself. The deep colour in a red grape is not merely a beauty to look upon, it is a shield the plant drew up out of the summer sun. So eat them whole, skins and seeds and all, and do not spit the good part away, for that is where the true goodness hides, never in the sweet soft flesh alone. Number 10. Wine in moderation. And here I will tread very carefully indeed. The old letter told a young man to take a little wine for his stomach's sake, and it was wine the Good Samaritan poured upon those wounds as an antiseptic, for diluted wine truly does kill the germs that fester in a cut. But mark the word little and mark the word moderation, for they carry the whole of the matter. One small glass with a meal, sipped slow in the old and civilized way. This is not permission, and it is not license, it is proportion, and there is all the difference in the wide world between the two. And do not forget the one I promised you at the start, still waiting for us down at number 20. The man they say ate insects out in the desert, who may in truth have been thriving all the while on one of the most healing foods on this whole earth. Keep him in your mind, for we are getting there. Number 11. Fish. The men he first called to follow him were fishermen to a soul, and fish was the daily bread along that quiet shore. The fatty fish carry the omega-3 fats, and I will tell you plainly and without a word of exaggeration, that is the strongest and surest nutrition science we have got in our hands, none stronger anywhere. It is food for the heart and it is food for the mind, guarding both of them as the long years pile up upon you. Grill it simple over a flame with a little of that olive oil we started this list with, and you have set before you a meal the old world would know and welcome at a single glance. Number 12. Goat's milk. When they spoke of a land flowing with milk and honey, it was goat's milk they meant by it, never the milk of the great cow we know today. And goat's milk is the gentler thing by far. It's fat broken into smaller globules that the body takes in easy, and it carries its own natural friendly bacteria to tend the gut. Drunk fresh and warm from the pail, or soured into yogurt and into kefir, it fed whole wandering peoples for thousands of years and sat light upon them. The bloating and the trouble that so many stomachs suffer today from modern milk would have been near unknown to them. Number 13. Hyssop. Purge me with hyssop, cries the old psalm, and it was a branch of hyssop they lifted up to the lips of Jesus upon the cross. This little herb is close cousin to oregano and to thyme, and it carries the very same potent oils, carvacrol and thymol, which the science now knows for a fact to be truly antibacterial and antiviral. So when those ancient rites of cleansing and purification called for hyssop, that was no empty and dusty ceremony. It was real medicine at work, a genuine washing away of the unseen things that make a body sick. They were scrubbing out the germs long before a single soul knew a germ was there to scrub. Number 14. Cumin. This was the one humble spice that Jesus himself named aloud, so small a seed and yet thought worthy of the mention. And modern study has found that cumin brings down the fasting sugar in the blood, a great and timely gift in these heavy times of ours. It settles a sour digestion, it eases the bloated belly after a rich and heavy meal, and it carries a fine dose of iron into the bargain to strengthen the tired blood. Just a pinch of an ancient seed doing its quiet and faithful work in the body that we with all our instruments are only now able to measure and to give a name. Number 15. Coriander. When the manna fell white in the wilderness to feed a hungry people, they wrote that it was like coriander seed, and that is how well and how fondly they knew it. They found this very same seed tucked carefully in the tomb of Tutankhamun himself, laid up for the journey beyond. It calms the body and cools its inflammation, and it has long carried a name for helping to draw the heavy metals up and out of a person. The old herbalists reached for it against wind and griping cramp in the gut, brewed into a simple tea, and it answered them faithfully, just as it answers still today. Number 16. Garlic. Out in that dry and endless desert, the Israelites wept aloud with longing for the garlic they had left behind them in Egypt, and small wonder, for they knew deep down what it did for their bodies. Garlic holds a compound called allicin, a broad and powerful slayer of germs, and it brings down both the blood pressure and the cholesterol into the bargain. But you must crush it first and let it rest a good 10 minutes and take it raw if you can bear the bite of it, for the heat of the pan robs it of its strongest power. A clove crushed into honey was an old and trusted cure for the winter cough. The slaves wept for medicine and called it food. Number 17. Onions. Mourned right alongside the garlic they were in that same bitter desert, longing for the good things of Egypt. The very workers who raised those great pyramids of stone were paid in part with onions. That is how highly they were reckoned and valued. And the onion is the richest source there is of quercetin and of a fiber called inulin, which is the very food that feeds the good bacteria down in your gut and lets them thrive and flourish. A raw onion bound to the sole of the foot was an old cottage remedy for drawing out a fever in the night. A humble bulb that makes you weep to cut it, quietly tending the whole hidden garden of your insides. Number 18. Almonds. The great golden lampstand that stood in the tabernacle was fashioned in the very shape of almond blossom, cup and bud and open flower. And when Aaron's dead rod broke into miraculous life, it was almonds that it budded. This is among the most nourishing foods that a body can possibly take in, packed close with vitamin E, with magnesium, and with the good fat that does the heart no harm at all, but only lasting good. A mere handful eaten each day has been shown to bring the cholesterol down and keep the hunger quiet between meals, beauty and medicine bound up together in the one small shell, and the ancients built its very shape into their holiest lamp. Number 19. Pistachios. When old Jacob sent a desperate gift down to the great ruler of Egypt, a gift to soften a hard heart in a killing time of famine, pistachios were among the chosen treasures he sent. They carry lutein, which is pure goodness for the aging eyes, and a prebiotic fiber that feeds and tends the gut, and they help to steady both the blood sugar and the cholesterol in the blood. They are among the few nuts that give you back a fair measure of protein besides. A nut thought fit for a prince and worthy of a peace offering, and it turns out to be quietly mending the very body that cracks it open and eats it. Number 20, carob, the locust bean. Now here at last is the one I promised you right at the start. The old pages say that John the Baptist, out alone in the wilderness, ate locusts and wild honey, and for long centuries, folk have pictured a poor starving man choking down insects to survive. But many a good scholar will tell you now that those locusts were no such thing at all. They were the pods of the carob tree, known to this very day as St. John's bread. Half of a carob pod is natural sugar, that is true, but it comes wrapped in near 40% fiber, so the body takes it in slow and kind, without a spike. It carries calcium and iron and potassium. It has no caffeine in it, and none of the oxalates that so torment those poor souls prone to kidney stones, so where chocolate would do them real harm, carob never could. And it holds tannins with a genuine power to kill germs and to settle a runaway gut. So much so that carob powder was given out in the hospitals of Europe to babies dying of the flux, long before any modern drug ever arrived to help them. Carob and wild honey taken together are a complete and sustaining food, and a man could live and thrive upon them out in the wild. So John the Baptist was never suffering out there. He was strong and he was well fed. The people who wrote these ancient words were not primitive. They were watchful and they were observant. The book was right all along. It simply never explained the mechanism to us, because to them, the food itself was the whole and entire point. So there is your 20, all counted down. And when you sit back and take in the whole sweep of it, you see a plain and a humbling truth laid bare. The people who wrote these old words were not simple and they were not primitive. They were watchers of the world. They saw with clear eyes what healed a man and what harmed him, and they wrote it down faithfully for us, and the great clever laboratories of our modern age are only now, thousands of years on down the road, catching up to what those ancients already knew in their bones. Now I would dearly like to hear from you, so tell me 2 things down in the comments below. First, which of all these 20 foods surprised you the very most? And second, which of them are you already eating, perhaps without ever once knowing the quiet work it was doing for you? Thank you kindly for spending this good time with me, truly, from the bottom of my heart. It is a real joy to sit and share these things with folk who still care about them, and if you would like the Book of Plants and their lookalikes and their true worth in dollars, it is waiting there for you at thebackyardgoldmine.com with the link just below. And next time, I will show you another remedy that the old world trusted and leaned upon for 1,000 years, and that the modern world then did its very best to erase from our memory altogether.